The Saskatchewan Roughriders have re-signed veteran defensive end Charleston Hughes after the two sides could not come to an agreement on a contract for the 2021 CFL season. Does Saskatchewan have more sacks left in him?
I think he does, but it's probably in single digits at this point. I was rather surprised by this return to Saskatchewan by Hughes. Obviously, he played in Toronto last season, played 9 games. He only ended up with 2 sacks on the season, which is a career low for a guy that's getting pretty close to that top 5 all-time career mark in terms of career sacks. If he can play a full season, be healthy, he's probably not a full-time guy for you. Maybe can help as a rotational pass rusher. If he can get 4 sacks next year, he moves into that 5th spot over Joe Munford. I think that's probably the high-end ceiling of what we can expect from Charleston Hughes if everything goes well.
There were a few teams, it should be noted, that were keeping tabs on Hughes and what his plans were going to be for the 2022 season in terms of playing. And ultimately, he goes back to the Riders. And it's surprising just because of the way that he left there. Essentially, a big disagreement with general manager Jeremy O'Day over the amount of a signing bonus that he wanted leads to him going to Toronto. And Hughes, to be frank, he was pissed off about the whole situation, went on this media rant, so to speak, talking about, like, essentially he didn't feel like he was treated fairly. Now that's totally his opinion. And then now they've patched things up to the point where Hughes is going to be back there in a Grey Cup year, it should be noted, where they need pass rush help. He's familiar with Jason Shivers and his defensive scheme. Shivers, of course, the defensive coordinator there. So he should definitely help. And he was productive with the Riders. That dip in Toronto in production, some people would say it's age and he's lost a step, but then other people will tell you, well, he wasn't necessarily used right. And Hughes himself admitted that he wasn't as committed to preparing for the 2021 season as he should have been through the pandemic. Now, we all went through our own ups and downs in terms of dealing with the pandemic, and seems like for the most part we're on the other side of it. So if Hughes is back in the right frame of mind, is training hard, or has trained hard at least going into training camp, I think he can still be productive, and I'm sure he's eyeing moving in to top 5 on the all-time sack chart.
To me, this move only makes sense because one would think at this point of the offseason, the Riders did not have to invest heavily in Charleston Hughes. I'm sure they got him on a sweetheart deal. And in fairness to the Riders, Jeremy O'Day, he was asked about Charleston Hughes a few months ago, and about the fact that he did not have a very strong season in Toronto last year. And he was very complimentary. He said, at the end of the day, we genuinely wanted Charleston back for 2021. We just couldn't agree on a price point. So I'm not surprised that the interest was there. I have talked to some people around the league who were surprised that this deal got done. But at the end of the day, the Riders lost Jonathan Woodard to the NFL. They've got AC Leonard, who is emerging as one of the top 3, if not maybe the top 2 pass rushers in the CFL on one side. And you mentioned, Dunk, the Grey Cup coming to Regina this year in November. If you're the Riders, I think you load up, because the worst case scenario is Hughes doesn't have the goods anymore, in which case it's not like you gave him $50,000 in a signing bonus to get him there. At this point, you get him on the cheap. It's low risk and potentially high reward.
Exactly. Yeah, you're not caught holding the bag when Father Time finally deals the ultimate blow to Charleston Hughes. Whether that's happened already or not, we can't say, but we'll find out this year.
Woodard has been recently released by the Kansas City Chiefs, so he could potentially come back to Riderville. We'll see what happens there. And the Riders were high on Pete Robertson, who they re-signed before free agency. But if Hughes is put in a role where it's limited reps per game and really just in those pass rush situations, then I think he's proven that despite his age, he could have at least the potential to still be productive.